Good morning and welcome to the Planning and Development Committee. Chairperson Davita Russell, Vice Chair Mr. Cobb,
I'm present. Sorry.
Member President Kudas.
Here.
We are all present. Thank you all for coming. Have a seat at the table. Thank you all for coming and participating in our Planning and Development Committee. As you all know from our last meeting, and some of our people, just for the audience, some of our people have emailed and said they're going to be a little late, so people will be coming in and out just for the audience. We talked about having a tag group, and we're going to talk about that a little bit down the agenda. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to address some things that I think is very important for all of us. I've been attending the National League of Cities, and they have an Ohio National League of Cities, but they also have the National League of Cities, where I actually paid for tickets by myself to do it, and I learned so much. It had to be about 5,000 or more just council people from all around the country, where you gather and you get different information, ideals, and get creative about what you can do to your city. And there's also people there from the federal government where you can talk to about individual funding for your city, how you go about having funding. They help you understand the process and all those different venues. And it's a wealth of knowledge that I believe personally that all city council people should go to, because it's an experience that you would never be able to get locally. But to be able to pull in from what other states are doing is amazing. And that's one of the things I got the TAG group from, the Technical Advisory Group. And I learned it from being a part of that convention, and I wanted to bring it back to our city to try to help. I do understand that being a part of a new chair of part of Plan and Development, that there is a learning curve that I have to go through, but all of us have to go through, because there is no one shoe size for planning and development. And all project agreements are different, all land development agreements are different, and you can't put them all into one individual box. And to do that, I talked to the federal government, HUD, and I asked at every other meeting, would they do a 30-minute learning workshop for all of us on specific topics that we want to be very knowledgeable in regarding economic development, so that we all are very clear and understand the roles, the positions, the loans, the process, the CBG funds, all of those things, so we can understand exactly how it operates and how it operates with the federal government, and how the city has to go about doing different things to bring about economic development to our city. So they agreed to actually come in and by Zoom, he's on Zoom, to give us that 30-minute workshop. And today it will be on the section 108, which is they call PRIME, which is loan processes, which is through the CBG funds. So we'll get a chance to understand how the CBG funds work, what happens through the loan process, and all those different things. So as we begin to talk and prepare to become a real mesh committee and group, we'll understand everything that we're talking about. A colleague yesterday said that, council members really ask a lot of the same questions when it comes to economic development, because they don't understand the process. And in a way, I agree. In a way, I agree. But as Robert taught, no question is a dumb question or a stupid question. Because if you're asking it, somebody else in the room wanted to ask it as well. That's one. And number two, being a part of the Planning and Development Commission or a member of the commission does not give you expertise to say that one person is expertise in one field, because information flows differently. So when everyone has the same information and the information flows through all parties, then everybody is knowledgeable in the same thing. If information is only flowing one way, then only certain people are knowledgeable to a specific committee or a project. So I want to open it up so that our community, that the TAG group, that our committee is very knowledgeable on what we're doing as we move forward. Because we do know that we're going to start to have a lot of development within Cleveland Heights. And for example, I believe we're going to start to break away and open some doors with Severance. I believe we're going to be doing some development in the Coventry area, the Noble area, the Caledonia area, and that is because of all of us, not one entity. That's because of the administration, that's because of you all who's here who are interested in what's going on in our community. So to be a part of that, we have to be able to understand the processes as well. But I want to use you all as a technical group, and I'm going to explain that goal after we do this. Now, first of all, I want to ask a question. I also brought in President of City Council for South Euclid-Lyndhurst, Ms. Ruth Gray.
South Euclid, not Lyndhurst.
Oh, South Euclid, thank you, I'm sorry. And Director of Planning and Development, Michael Love. And I met with them because they are doing some things in South Euclid that just blows my mind. And I can't help but see it because I have to drive that way and I'm a school bus driver in South Euclid-Lyndhurst, right? So everything that I see that's happening in their city, I'm like, how come we're not doing it over here? So I was curious of how they work together, how they've come to be a Ruth is one right arm and Dr. Love is the left arm, and they work together simultaneously to get things done in South Euclid. So I wanted them to come and explain to us how they work together, what's happening in South Euclid, and what can those things actually happen in our city and what we could do to make our city, and not saying we're not bad, and we're not working together, I'm not saying that, but to be more cohesive in what we're seeing, what I'm seeing, and what they're doing in South Euclid that I know they're very, very proud of, because when I talked to them about it, they were gleaming. So to be respectful of your time, would you want to go first before the presentation, which is only 30 minutes, or would you like to be a part of the 30-minute session?
I think we can go first and then.
And if you want to
Fine.
say. So, is he on? Hello?
Hello?
Oh, okay. Hi, how are you this morning?
Hi, Madam President. We are doing fine. Thank you so much for having us.
Okay, so did you just hear my segue a moment ago?
That we go second? That will be fine if we go second.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was okay with
Sure.
you. Okay.
Thank you for asking.
Thank you so very much. All right, so I'm going to turn this over to President of South Euclid Council, Ruth Gray, and Director Love.
Well, I just say thank you for inviting us to your great city, our sister city neighbor. And Councilwoman Russell asked me to talk about what City Council does in our relationship. So first of all, you have to understand, I've been on council for 19 years. And so I have sat on all of the committees. And so I have a different perspective of the role of council because of that longevity. And so about 4 years ago, I became the chair of the Zoning and Planning Committee. And one of the things I wanted to do, and I think I did this with all of the committees when I was chair, I set up where we didn't just have the committee meetings, we had off-committee meetings every month, so that I could get an understanding of what was going on, and that we could have some real candid conversations. And I don't want to say this where it's like we're trying to divert sunshine laws, because we're not.
Right.
But sometimes there are some candid conversations that need to be had, and they need to be had about some things you want to do better, and you don't want to make it a public issue.
Okay.
And so that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do it. So what we ended up doing, I ended up meeting not any other council people. I meet with the director and his team, the building commissioner, the the community director, services director, and the commercial inspectors. And we just talk about what's going on. And I get to tell them what I see and what I see if we have problem areas. And so that kind of relationships work really well. We've been able to circumvent some issues, i.e. sometimes your commercial businesses don't fall in line with code. And so you need to make sure that you put the pressure on them to fall in line with code. And so we talk about those type of things. We talk about the pending legislation that we may be looking at. And I get a chance to look at what the issues are so that when I talk to other council members, I have a full understanding of what's in front of me because they may have some questions. And so that's the kind of relationship that Mike and I have had for well over 4 years now, and it just works well for us.
So tell us some exciting things that you all are doing, and especially the new development that's happening over on South Euclid with the new homes.
Well, I like the Loudon place, and I'll tell you, this might be very apropos to some things that you may encounter. For those of you that don't know, Loudon used to be the Loudon Elementary site in the South Euclid Lyndhurst School District. They demolished that school, I think it was in 2007. And at that same time, as we know, things happen very quickly in society, and what you plan and what you get can be two different things. So as they demolished that school with the intent of selling the property, the housing market plummeted and everything started to go south. You couldn't release any property. You couldn't sell anything. It was of no value anymore. It was just going. So all of us experienced that. So they couldn't sell it. So eventually they got a commercial developer that wanted to build in the middle of a residential area. It would could have done it, but they wanted to build a senior housing development. 4-story senior housing development, probably, I think it had about 60 units in it, something like that. And so the residents was not having it. They did not want it. They did not want it at all.
Objections.
Well, first it was in a residential community, homes.
Single family
homes, ranches, and they didn't want the traffic, the way the community was set up. They just could not see that. And they did not want, well, that was it. They just wanted homes. They wanted homes. And so they rallied the public, they rallied the school district, and eventually the developer pulled out. So they couldn't sell it. Now, fast forward, the market is now getting better, okay? And another developer came to us maybe about 3 years ago, and he wanted to purchase the homes, the lots. These lots are single lots, even though it's a land, they're all lots. They're all different lots. So he purchased those, 17 of them.
17 of it.
17 lots. And he purchased the other additional 9 lots that South Euclid had purchased from a property owner that had some problems.
I remember that.
Okay, so all of this, they purchased these lots from us. And so what now is happening is we have 27 brand new homes that market starting rate $270,000 and up, going up. And before they have all been constructed, they have all been sold. And part of that is because the residents were very clear in what they wanted in their neighborhood. And the public, government, city council had to hear that. And had we not heard that, had no one listened to that, they would have had a multi-unit dwelling apartment building in the middle of a cluster of homes. And the value probably would not have been what they're getting ready to see now. So that's an example. If you want to talk about an example of us working together, that was one I could share.
That's great. That's a great example.
And I will say that one thing we require, that, with all of these development projects that have been coming forward, because we have 3 more right now pending before city council. So if everything is built over the next 24 months or so, we'll have about 130 new homes in the city. When a developer approaches us with a development plan, we work with Council President Gray's committee, and the first thing we do is schedule a community meeting. So before they make a formal submittal to the city, we have a community meeting where they present to the community, introduce the project, and allow the community to have input. So, one of the things, the Loudon Place development on the former Loudon school site, there were 3 very mature old growth oak trees. The residents were adamant that those trees be saved. So the plan was altered before it was actually formally presented to ensure those trees would be preserved. So just as an example of why we do those community meetings, it allows the residents to feel like their voice and input is being taken into account before the formal public approval process actually starts. And those are invite-only meetings for the residents that are most impacted by the project.
And you have that first prior to?
Prior to them actually making their formal submittal to the city. Yeah.
Okay. Are you a part of that meeting as well?
I chair it.
Okay. Oh, you chair, hold on. You chair the
public hearing.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
It's part of our process.
Okay, yes.
So I just want to be clear here about the process you use. So I'm assuming there's a memorandum, there's an RFP at some point, and that you're talking about before council signs a memorandum of understanding or a purchase agreement for the land, not the development agreement, but the purchase agreement of the land. You're saying at that point, you have a public meeting.
Well, so these are the site, the Loudon property was publicly owned by SEL Schools, but these other projects, they're privately owned sites. So I mean, technically, the developer could say, no, we're not going to do a community meeting. We're just going to proceed with making our formal submittal to the city. There's no, we can't legally require them to do it, but out of a show of good faith, they want to cooperate and want to work with us, and they've been very amenable to doing those community meetings.
But on the public land projects, the part of the project or projects that are public land, you do have, before council votes on any part of the project, any stage of the project, you have a public meeting. Obviously council could.
I think there's 2 different things you're talking about. We're just talking about our basic process. If you buy land and you want to develop it. The other part that you're referring to is how do we convey public property. And so one of the things that South Euclid did, we were going through the housing crisis, and we saw that we were losing properties and they had to be demolished, and we needed to protect our interests in controlling how our city looked. we created the One South Euclid CDC. And a part of creating the One South Euclid CDC, we also established what we call the Build, Grow, Thrive program. And the Build, Grow, Thrive program is where all of those lots or properties that are under our auspices, our control, we convey them to South Euclid to sell them, redevelop them under the Build, Grow, Thrive program. So we're promoting what we see as our agenda: housing, homeownership, those things that are, and not only homes, using that revenue to help and do beautification, storefront, all kind of things. So that's how our public resources, our public part works. But that's different. If you purchase property in South Euclid and you want to build a home on that property, then you have the responsibility of getting those specs and requesting a permit to the city. It goes to the planning commission and they review it. They see if it's up to code, if it fits in accordance to what we're going to do. Once you pass that step, then it comes back to council. From when it hits council's role now is to have a public hearing, to listen to the residents and allow the residents to listen to the developer's plan and exchange, to give input. And if it works, if it doesn't. But our role is to make sure that we are in compliance with the law. Because council can't step outside of the law either. You know, you have property rights. But what we can do is bring the community and the developer together to see if the two shall meet. In the first one, the two didn't meet. Okay, it just didn't work. So in this one, the developer met with the community, I think twice. And he brought all his designs and they gave questions and they asked him. And there was a general consensus from the community. Okay, this sounds good. This looks good. We'll follow it. And that's how loud it.
Yes.
I'd like to ask how the city got control of the Loudon School property, or were you working in conjunction with the school district? Because you talked about 7 parcels that were privately owned and then the school site. So tell me how that worked, because
So the city did not have control of the Loudon property. It was owned by SEL Schools up until the time that it was sold to the developer. The other 9 lots that Council President Gray were referring to were lots that had homes on them, that the city purchased. I was not there yet, probably 2006, 2007?
I think it was about 2000, around the same time that Loudon was being torn down.
That were nuisance properties. So the city demolished those 9 lots and held them in our land bank until such time that someone purchased the Loudon school site. And because they were adjacent to the Loudon school site, the developer was interested in purchasing them. And, you know, it was really, the city took a lot of flack for buying those properties and doing that. But at the end of the day, by holding them until the time was right, all 9 lots, as Council President Gray said, sold within, I think, 2 weeks of being on the market.
Yeah, they're all
and they all were, those lots were all between 300 and 325. And I think even 5 years ago, if you said we would sell lots on Greenvale for new homes at 325.
I looked over there.
Yeah. So it's really a testament to everyone's patience to making that project work.
so you were collaborating with the school district all the while?
It's a very interesting process.
I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say, you have to understand my role as a council person. I carry the voice of the ward. So when it came to that Loudon property, when the residents came out against it, I was right there with them. Because you can't come into a neighborhood, and I don't know where everybody lives, but you live in a neighborhood, you've been invested your life there, you've been 3 to 4 generations there, and all of a sudden, the school is no longer there, and someone outside of your neighborhood decides to put a 3-4 story building in your community that's going to impact your life, and they didn't want it. And they were very vocal about that, about being in control or having a say about how their community looks. And I absolutely agree with that. I absolutely agree with that.
I do too. Yes, definitely.
And, you know, one of the things in South Euclid too is obviously as a post-war community, the city grew very fast, you know, in the 40s and 50s, and the schools were building. So, I mean, we had neighborhood elementary schools throughout. I think there were 9 or 10 elementary schools throughout the SEL schools, and we're now down to 3. So those were neighborhood schools. They were built, slapped right down in a residential neighborhood surrounded by single-family houses. They weren't, you know, on main corridors. They were really installed within the neighborhood. So that's where I think, you know, being cognizant of that when these sites are being redeveloped is important. But to your point about working with the schools, I would say the first phase, when the schools first put the property on the market, there wasn't much collaboration between the cities and the schools. The school district found that developer and brought them to us for the senior housing. After that, and the fiasco that became, for lack of a better term, the second time in finding the current developer, that was much more of a collaborative relationship.
That's great. That's great. I'm impressed of what the work you all have been doing and just watching it. And I wanted to let you take with you the tag information and let me know which, I know I spoke with you, Dr. Love, Director Love. I want to call everybody a doctor. Director Love, and you thought it was a very good idea. And so as we move forward, I would love to get more information from you both to see what your thoughts are as far as a tag group to help
Do you have anything like that?
a development.
I would say it's more of an ad hoc.
Okay.
So as projects come up, so as an example, you know, with these 3 housing development projects, they're all planned as planned unit residential developments. And to Council President Gray's point about her longevity, she was the only person on council the last time we had a PERD development proposal come before us. So, you know, we're convening a group of professionals that's going to present to council on May 13th as an example to sort of walk through that process, discuss what the requirements are for the PERD. So I think in our case, it's really been as projects come up, we convene a group. But I do definitely see the value in if you have the right expertise in having a standing group too.
Thank you. Yes.
Can you describe how you went forward with the Francis Court project?
In terms of,
The land assembly, who owned the land prior to that, who had control, who made the deal with the developer?
I think that's going to be a lot because I want to make sure we get.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. The training session going. So
I can give a card.
yeah, okay, there you go. And
Thank you.
because I don't want to prolong our meeting into something. Thank you. Okay, so we are moving at 11 o'clock. So I want to have the consciousness of his time to walk through the section 108 with us and then talk about the actual tag advisory group and the expectations and what I think would be a great help to us as a council. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
I will be in touch, definitely. Four minutes. Morales, Mr. Morales?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're on.
Awesome. Okay, so we are ready to go then. Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you to the city. We are very happy to be engaged once again with Cleveland Heights. We had contact back in 2021, almost through the pandemic, almost getting out of the pandemic, with Mr. Brian Iorio, one of the city staff, and we have a good conversation. So I'm happy to re-engage to see if the city can take advantage of this great financing tool. With me this morning is Sean Dennehy Bailey. He's a community development specialist, and he will be assisting me with the presentation. In terms of my background, let me tell you, I came to HUD straight from the city, so I spent sometimes I have over 30 years experience dealing with HUD programs, including CPD, CDBG. When I was at the city, I wrote for the city. I submitted an application of Section 108 for a convention center, an aquarium, and a municipal bank. So I know how it is to be at the city level. I know that's everything that's going on. So I bring that perspective to the table and to this presentation. So let me share my screen if I could. See. Okay, I will share. So this is be seeing my cover. I believe now. So this morning, like I said, myself and Sean is going to be doing the presentation. See, and basically, I know this is more of an overview. We're not going too much into the details because, I mean, I want to be respectful all the time. I just want to give you an idea of the what it takes to develop a new CDBG and Section 108. We'll talk a little bit about Section 108. We talk about the resources and the financing process and the source of capital for projects. We're going to be a little bit fast, and we're going to jump over some areas that are not relevant at this time, but feel free to stop us at any time if you feel like you want to discuss anything further. And then one of the reasons we're going to go fast is to allow for question and answers. And with that, I'll pass it to Sean.
Thank you, Jorge. I believe I'm off mute. Everybody should hear me now. Good morning. Real quickly, some of the things that we'd like to point out right off the bat.
There's an interference on your on.
How about that? Is that
Awesome.
better?
Yes.
A lot better. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so quickly, good morning. Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be able to talk to you today about the Section 108 Loan Guarantee Program. It's an amazing tool. One thing to remember when we get right off the bat, what separates us from a lot of other federal programs, monies that you may come across, is that we provide loan guarantees and not a grant. Right? We're a loan program, and we use the community development block grant money as leverage, and we can act as a guarantor for a loan. We do work off of the CDBG programs and the community development block grant program, and we use that as a framework. So you'll notice that a lot of the similar projects, not all, but a lot of the similar projects that you may be familiar with under the CDBG program, they're eligible for funding. You'd find eligible under the Section 108 program. What makes us really special is that we offer all of our borrowers means to accessing low interest rates, and that's because we can use use the full faith and credit of the United States government through the CDBG program to ensure timely payments and repayments of the loan on your behalf. So we act as the guarantor. It's low-cost, non-competitive money that's available year-round. We're not a grant. There's not an appropriation from the federal government, so we have access to the private market, which makes us available 365 days a year. Next slide, please. So I'd like to kick this off. One of our, in summary, right, 4 jewels, we like to refer to this as the 4 major things that make the 108 stand out as such an attractive program. There's an incredibly wide range of use and a lot of flexibility within that. You'll hear us use that word a lot today. Low-cost financing and with flexible terms, right? We can really tailor the loans and the terms of the loans to your project, your specific project needs. There's an incredible amount of flexibility in the sources of repayment and the collateral used, right? It is a loan, so you need to secure the loan, and the collateral that you can use, we'll go into detail, is always the CDBG funds, but you can also use all sorts of other things to do that, and same with repayment. And again, the availability of funds, readily available 365 days a year for your projects, whenever you may need them and whenever they may come up. Next slide. All right, so quickly going over the process again, right? We're going to go high level. We're going to move a little quickly, right? But you would select a project or projects, right? You have the flexibility to choose either multiple projects or break them out into different loans. You go through the application process, which has been streamlined, right? We are representing headquarters today, so we're in Washington, D.C. Jorge's in the office, I'm at home, obviously. We work congruently with the field office and your teams, right, to make sure that we can review these applications early and quickly and process them expeditiously as possible. Right. We then go into an approval phase once all those background documents, the certifications, the application meets certain criteria, which we would gladly assist you with for an approval phase. After that point, there's a key distinction here is you'll be offered a commitment and a guarantee, and then you enter into the financing and administration phase. So prior to the financing phase, you have a commitment, which means we'll offer to lend the money, and after the financing phase, we're actually, funds are going out, being distributed, and being repaid. Deeper dive into that, as I touch on some of these notes, you'll notify HUD and the field office, congruently say, hey, we have a project idea, right? We really want to assist our community, and we think 108 is a great financing tool, because we heard Sean already talk about it, and it's amazing. We'll complete pre-submission requirements, including citizen participation, right? There are some things that...
Excuse me, Mr. Bailey, we have a question.
Are we going to get a copy of this presentation?
Yes, I was gonna ask for you to send a copy.
Yep.
Thank you. That saves my notes.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we can send over some other resources too, some links and some one-pagers and quick reference guides as well. After this.
Thank you.
Yes.
Our pleasure. Okay, so yeah, so you complete the pre-submission requirements, you submit the application like I talked about. We have streamlined our review process with the field office and headquarters to try to expedite the funds arriving in your communities and getting to work. We'll revise applications as needed, and then we can issue the approval and we issue the offer of commitment.
Sean, let me stop here for a little bit, because this is where the city council is more plays an important role, and that is part of completing the pre-submission requirements. As part of the requirements before the city can submit an official application, there's a citizen participation that has to take place. This could be used or the same citizen participation process that is used for the CDBG consolidated plan, annual plan, can be utilized for the Section 108, or if that time has passed, then the city can do the Section 108 citizen participation plan process, and it's basically they have to be the citizenship. Citizens have to be notified of the intention of the city and the type of project, the amount of Section 108 that's going to be used, is if the project is going to generate any program income. So once they go through that process, they complete that process, then they need to go to the city council, to you guys, in order to get the approval and the official permission or authorization for the mayor to submit the Section 108 application. We have implemented a couple of measures to expedite this process, and that is while the city is doing their citizen participation, we are going through a process with the city of reviewing the draft application. That means that we will take care of any issues that application may have. So by the time they complete the citizen participation and they submit the official application, the commitment approval won't take more than 30 days. All right? Question?
All right.
You take it back.
Okay, so who has access to the 108 funds, right? And this is a loan guarantee. So it's a CDBG program. So you have the entitlement communities, states and small cities. You also have the ability to pass money through to subrecipients, all right, which could be economic development or public housing authorities, development corporations, nonprofits we've worked with as well. There's a lot of flexibility in there. Also, other parties that may receive the 108 funds directly, right, are what we refer to as DPAs, or designated public agencies. For the purpose of this chat and in brevity, it's an entity that can issue debt, right? We're focused on that side of the equation. So again, CDBG entitlement communities, if you receive a direct allocation from the federal government each year, you can have access to the 108 funds. That, I want to draw a clear distinction here with access is you can become the borrower, right? The funds can pass through and can be utilized in communities for projects, but the person who is, or the entity that is the borrower and ultimately responsible for repayment of the loan, management of the loan, is who we're referring to here as having access to those funds.
You're fading in and out, Mr. Bailey.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. A little better?
Yes, definitely.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so the funds, what are we talking about here? So you heard me mention that the CDBG allocation is what we use to base our program off of. And what makes the Section 108 Loan Guarantee Program so substantial is that you're able to borrow up to 5 times your allocation amount. So simply put, if you get $3 million a year and as part of your CDBG allocation, you can borrow up to $15 million. Simple math. However, we do have to account for any outstanding commitments or any previous 108 loans that you may have applied for and been approved for and gotten to that commitment phase that we mentioned, and any existing loan balances, so the monies that have been drawn in that post-financing phase. We account for those as well to give you available borrowing capacity. I took the liberty of pulling that up, and it looks like Cleveland Heights has about $7.795 million available commitment to debt, based off of your 2023 allocation.
7 point what?
$7.795 million.
I'm sorry.
And we would provide that table and information as well. It's readily available on HUD Exchange. We have tools and resources also.
Did he, I don't know if you heard your question.
Brian.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Yeah, I can't see the room, so if you do have a question, just feel free to word it out and I'll.
Okay, but I don't know if everybody heard your question.
Well, my question is, in the number that you threw out, something, that's our borrowing capacity based upon what is our current CDBG? Is 1.6 something, 1.5?
You're good at math. 1.559.
And that's the city's capacity to borrow 5 times. Okay, got it.
Yep. So the fiscal year 23 award, right, which is what has been a process and approved, is $1,559,128. You do not have any current outstanding commitments or loan balances, although you have utilized this program in the past. All debts have been repaid, which gives you 5 times full availability is $7,795,640. Screws my screen over in 3 or so. $640. Want to be precise.
Right, the amount that is used is the last approved CDBG allocation. So at the time, and that is at the time of the application.
Okay. Interesting, okay. Question?
I'm just waiting for a couple.
Okay, good, no questions.
I had a question.
Questions, please, jump in with your questions.
My question was, you mentioned that the city could take out and be the borrower and disseminate those funds to local nonprofits within the municipality. Is that what I heard correctly?
Correct.
The fact that the eligible borrowers are the city, in this case, the city is an eligible borrower or applicant. However, the city can then either pass through to a subrecipient or a nonprofit, or can relent the money to a private developer for a project, for an economic development project or a housing project, to be repaid back by that project's revenue. In effect, that is the most effective way to leverage the CDBG, because you will leverage the CDBG by 5 times using the Section 108. And there's a report back in 2017 that says that Section 108 will leverage private investment by 4.27 per dollar. So that's how much money you have. $1 CDBG multiplied by 5 by Section 8 multiplied by 4.67. That's the number, and that's how much you will leverage for the community your single dollar of CDBG funds.
So
Sorry, go for it.
So we could actually lend money to a private developer to do economic development within the city?
Yes, ma'am. That absolutely.
As long as it's eligible under normal CDBG rules. So that'd be
right.
You're right on it. Yep.
And we'll get into that. We'll get into the requirements in a little bit now.
I believe that's the next couple of slides. As I was going to say, it's great, but of course, right, it's a federal loan guarantee program, so there are some caveats. It's not just blank checking it, but yes, yeah.
And I have another question. As far as the funds, is the application process where I guess most people who are aware of the CBG funds can put in applications, but could also the city actually go and actually direct those funds in other areas versus people just applying, versus the city being the initiative person to go out and say, we want to be able to fund this or put money into this project, so we are direct into just allocating those funds versus just putting those funds out there and people just apply for them and we give out funds.
Right. It would be project-based. You identify a project first before we apply.
Yes, the city is the one, is the primary, the primary, is the city or subrecipients are the ones that can carry out eligible activities. And when we say that you can relent to a developer, that is one of the activities contained within the eligible activities, which is economic development activities. So yes, indeed, the city can choose to carry out activities themselves, can choose a subrecipient to carry out an activity on behalf of the city, which is a recipient, or can enter into an assistance agreement with a private developer to do, for example, rehabilitation or to do a business type of program.
Yeah, and to Jorge's point, and to answer the question, and we will talk about this a little later, we're talking about project structure a little bit in that question. So it's, yes, you can apply directly for a project you have in mind already, a redevelopment of a piece of housing or public facility that you may have already in mind, already slotted for, and you need a little gap funding. Or kind of set it up to be a little more flexible on your end as projects come in. And Jorge will do a little bit deeper dive in that. So there's another area of flexibility that this program avails.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions on this slide? We'll move. It seems like we're already getting ready for the next couple of slides, so I think.
Go for it.
Okay, Jorge, this is a great segue. Do you want to take it from here?
Sure, I'll take it from here. So yeah, definitely this prior discussion really served as an introduction. So in order to use the Section 108, there's two main approaches that we have available, and that is project specific, and that when you have a project specific application, that means that the application clearly states that the specific project or projects, it can be one single project or multiple projects, but it will have to be those projects and the information has to be identified because this type of application requires a high level of project detail and specificity to do a program review and the financial underwriting. So for each project, you basically will have to submit the information that allow us to make a determination that the project is eligible and the financials that we'll talk a little bit coming up are met, the financial requirements. The second approach, and it's fairly common and popular among our borrowers, is the loan fund approach or the loan pool, where the application basically describes the type of funds that the type of funding that you want to provide to specific projects or type of projects. This can be as specific as, for example, to assist an area for specific businesses. Like I always bring up Brockton, Massachusetts loan fund, and they did one for their downtown area for restaurant infrastructure projects. So you're talking about very specific. Another one that is quite specific, the district here in Washington, they submitted for a loan to be dedicated for affordable housing, affordable creation and preservation of affordable housing. So the type of project that they will fund will be just for that objective, and you can take it all the way. There's some common ones like loan funds for small businesses because the community wants to spark, some type of economic development activities, improvements. So that's, once again, this type of application is more broad. What we will review is the underwriting process, how the city is going to outreach, how the city is going to process the loans, who's going to approve it, what type of parameters they will use to underwrite that loan. And underwriting, what it means is to assess risk associated with that type of loan. And we have plenty of resources available on our website, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But once again, this is one of the most popular type of loan that we have. And once the city gets the pipeline or has a specific project, then they will need to submit the project information to their field office, and then the field office will provide us with the determination that the activity is eligible, that they're meeting a national objective, and that they're complying with the public benefit standards. And we'll talk about those three in a little bit now. Any questions on this? Okay. So what type of projects Section 108 can fund? We have our four main areas. Those are economic development. I have talked a little bit about that. There's housing. I want to stop here and say that there's a restriction or prohibition on using CDBG or Section 108 on the creation of new housing construction or the development of new housing construction, unless there's a specific entity called CBDO, which is Community-Based Development Organization, that can actually do new housing construction. But that's like an exception. Housing rehab, on the other hand, that's totally open. The third one is public facility. Actually, a loan fund, I have a city that submitted for a loan fund to use it for only public facilities. They're gonna use it themselves. They have a lot of public facility needs, but they don't have the priorities at this time. But once they organize and they determine what public facility will get funded, then that's when they submit for a determination to ensure that the project is eligible. But that's another example of the flexibility of the loan fund. And then lastly, infrastructure or public improvement. That's another area that the 108 is really good for.
Question.
And these are, sure.
For the public facilities, so the CBG funds could be used to update public facilities?
Yes, indeed. The only, there's also a restriction there. It cannot be facility that it is used for government business. That's the only thing. Like the city hall cannot be done, or many city halls cannot be improved with Section 108 unless there's one. There's always an exception to everything, right?
Yeah.
Unless we're talking about architectural barriers for disabled people.
So the community,
Yeah,
so that would
compliance.
fall the community centers and park upgrades and, what was it, hospitals? And
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Everything that is owned by the city parkings, parking garages, community centers, senior centers, those are public facilities.
Can they be used
This-
can they be used for, community swimming pools or splash pads or things like that within the park of the community?
I didn't.
Some might not,
I didn't-
but.
Yeah,
He didn't understand you.
Can the CBG funds be used for, an upgrade on a swimming pool or
Yep.
a splash pad that's being created within the community and the parks as well?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, think about it this way. The only thing that is not allowed, is just the regular government business, and that's mainly in the city hall, like or the police department, that type of thing.
Can it be used for a dog park?
Yes, that's
Can it be
parks.
used for a dog
That
park?
yeah, parks improvement. Yes.
Sports fields, facilities, if it's publicly accessible, city-owned, it's a public facility, that's fine.
Okay.
Does the project have to qualify for low, moderate area or?
Yes, and I'll talk a little bit about that in coming slides. So hold on that one. Any
No,
other
right
question
on.
on projects?
I do.
What, wait,
Yeah.
I don't think, did he answer your
He's
question?
gonna do that in a couple of slides.
Oh, okay, I'm
So all
sorry.
of
He wants more
these
questions on this
qualify.
side.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so we have an ARPA fund project for exterior repairs, and exterior repair program, it's funded with ARPA dollars. My thought is that it's kind of, I don't exactly know how it breaks down, but I think it's something like a 50-50 thing. You pay for 50% of the repair, the homeowner pays for 50% of the exterior repairs, and then the homeowner pays for the other. Suppose they have a $10,000 project and they're getting $5,000 in ARPA funds, but they need to borrow money to pay for the rest. Would this program be eligible, the loan program be eligible for that kind of a project?
Yeah, because if you're talking about individual homeowners that need money for rehabilitation, that's perfectly. Yeah, that would be under 570-202. Yep, definitely. They can. The city can provide a very low cost loan for repairs.
Yeah, and there was just some talk in here, and briefly. So low mod and qualified census tract is
2 different things. Yeah, for how,
I'm not saying they're the same thing, but what I am saying is that's part of the eligibility for the ARPA funds. I don't know if that's part of the.
Oh, for our plan.
For ARPA, yeah, but in order to use CDBG or Section 108, remember, the activity has to be eligible. That means that has to be listed under the eligible activity provision of the CFR. For CDBG is 24 CFR 570-201. For Section 108, the eligible activities provision is under 24 CFR 570-703. And then those activities, in order to be totally eligible, well, actually, they have to be eligible. They have to meet a national objective. And one of the three national objectives have to be one of the three, which are either benefiting low-mod individuals, elimination of some blight, or urgent needs.
Elimination of what?
Slum and blight. So those are the three national objectives that one of those eligible activities need to meet in order to be eligible. Because if they don't meet a national objective, that eligible activity becomes ineligible.
I have one.
And then under, just to build off of that, under benefiting individuals, you can achieve that through an area calculation, seeing area impact, where you look at the census tract data and the percentage of low to moderate income, similar to CDBG calculations, providing jobs and limited clientele. So that's elderly, persons with disabilities, et cetera.
Right, there are ways to meet the benefiting low-mod individuals, and that through jobs. That means that 51% of the jobs created have to go to low-mod individuals. Like Sean said, limited clientele for specific group of people, homeless, seniors. They are presumed to be low-mod, so they can achieve that. And then housing, in terms of housing, 51% of the housing created has to be occupied by low-mod households. Those are the three areas, and specifically, and the area of benefit that will mean that the city will determine a service area, and that service area has to be at least 51% low-mod.
How does that apply to a business?
Go ahead. Ask the question.
How does that apply to a business? Because I see you have business retention, for instance. So we want to help a business stay in business by making some funds available to them. How do
Right, exactly.
How do these
It will. So the jobs they are created. They will not be creating, but they will be retaining jobs. 51% of those jobs that are being retained has to be for low mods, and that will satisfy meeting the national objective.
Thank you.
And then we can also, we can also provide deep dives into that if that's a route and a project that you would be interested in pursuing, because there's a lot of detail and nuance there. But yeah, that would be fine.
I have a question. If you had an area where, I thought I saw hospitals or something on that? No?
I was in there.
Oh, did I?
Can you go back to the previous slide?
I'm thinking about,
Thank you.
how does that affect with the hospitals? So, for example, we have maybe an area that we don't have a drugstore, we don't have something. A clinic.
Yep.
Could CBG funds go towards putting a pharmacy or clinic or urgent care center in that area?
Yeah, the city can assist, right? Either do it themselves or in partnership with a private entity to use Section 108 for that. Remember, the area and the area that is served by the service, by the city determined service area has to be LMI.
Okay.
So, and the city based on census tracts, they will say, okay, this area will receive the benefit of this specific urgent care center, for example. And that area that is determined has to be at least 51%.
Another question, if I may. Are
Sure.
the loans that come through 108, are they designated as the senior loan on any given, if you have multiple loans on a project?
All right, that's a good question.
Jorge,
That is
Jorge, take this one.
yeah, that is financing question. That's a financing question. Basically, what you're asking is if the Section 108 can subordinate to a senior loan,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Right, and the answer is yes. And when we move to the, because you'll see that when we brief the financial requirements, because we are able, and I will advance this to you. The Section 108 has to be secure, and it has to be secure primarily with CDBG funds, because that's the pledge that the city has to sign, saying that they are pledging the current and future CDBG in case something goes wrong to pay the 108.
Yeah.
And because the Credit Reform Act of 1992, the agencies are required to obtain additional collateral, because we cannot base the collateral on something that may not happen next year, right? I mean, there's no guarantee that CDBG will be continued, in theory, right? I mean, we all know. So we have to obtain an additional collateral that can be in the form of real property, revenues from the city, any legal revenues generated by the city. We can set a pledge on that as collateral. And that's why we're able to accept or subordinate to senior lenders. However, if it's for a real property, that property has to have enough value for a combined loan to value of 80%. If it's less than that, I mean, it's more, I'm sorry. If it's more than that, then another supplemental collateral has to be taken.
Understand. Thank you.
Sure. Good discussions. So in terms of these are the type of projects that we have seen and the scope of the Section 108. It could be incremental improvements through solar panel systems, sidewalk and curb improvements. Those are public improvement. Park upgrades, we already talked about that. It could be substantial projects like rehab of affordable housing, construction of community centers, cooperative developments, or can be transformational initiatives like mediation and new construction, acquisition and clearance, and multi-use anchor. Like this is more of a commercial type of enterprise. Then these are the stages where Section 108 can be deployed. You have through or from preparation of pre-development through acquisition, demolition, site preparation and remediation, relocation costs, or implementation through construction, acquisition of machinery and equipment for business, working capital for business, and infrastructure and improvements. So there are two set of requirements, program requirements and financial requirements. Both are important. Let me talk a little bit real quick about program requirements. Program requirements are basically the standard CDBG requirements that includes the eligible activity I already mentioned. They have to meet a national objective, and they have to meet a public benefit standards. And public benefit standards is a little bit tricky for businesses because the city has to ensure that a minimum amount of benefit is derived from the investment of these funds. And one example, they can meet the individual standard, which in terms of the person served or the goods provided. Another area is for jobs. Those jobs created, they have to create a business. They have to create one job per $50,000. So if you're lending to a business for an expansion, for example, and you want to give them a loan for $100,000, they have to pledge that they will create at least 2 jobs. and those 2 jobs will have to go to LMI. If they are creating 3 jobs, for example, at least, once again, at least 51% of those jobs have to go to LMI. In this case, at least 2 out of 3 in this case. So this is an evaluation that your community development department has to make in order to satisfy the requirement of the public benefit standards. Then all the other requirements still apply as regular CDBG, which includes the environmental review, Davis-Bacon requirements, procurement, relocation, fair housing. Nowadays, they have to include Build America, Buy America, the new requirement for using federal funds in construction projects, and also Section 3. In terms of the financial requirements, once again, we will be talking about repayment, collateral, and underwriting. In terms of repayment, CDBG can be used to repay. It doesn't have to be used for repayment. We will take any type of revenue that is legally derived from the city. For example, parking revenue, tax increment financing is a good source of revenue for repayment. Once the third-party loan proceeds, right, the project that you assist will generate some revenues, and that revenues will be used to repay the loan. In that case, the city don't have to use the CDBG for repayment, and that will be saving the CDBG for other activities, more, for the city. In terms of collateral, once again, I explained that the primary, and this is statutory, the pledge of current and future CDBG has to be pledged. That's the primary source of requirement of collateral. Additional collateral could be property lien, full faith and credit of the city. The city can pledge full faith and credit. About full faith and credit, right now, if the city is providing another type of collateral, the Section 108 is not considered a general obligation. However, if they provide the full faith and credit,
That's what he said.
right? The Section 108 is a limited recourse, limited liability loan, meaning that the only collateral that we will after will be what is on the contract, nothing else. And that's why it's not considered a general obligation, and the city's borrowing capacity from its general fund is not affected.
Okay.
But if the city pledge a full faith and credit, then it might become a general obligation, and your city's borrowing capacity from the general funds can be affected.
Okay.
It's an either.
We also, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Is there a question?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, okay, good. So another source of collateral could be we can ask the city to set up in a bank account a debt service reserve account, and the level of that debt service reserve account will be to the highest debt service payment through the life of the loan, and that will have like a replenishment provision that if the city uses that account, it has to replenish to that level. And that's where you guys get involved also, because you guys are the ones that approve this type of collaterals. And it's strictly financial numbers. Once again, the city is responsible for the underwriting, and I want to emphasize that underwriting is the assessing the risk to determine if the risk is acceptable to the city, right? Not that it's riskless. I mean, it can be risk, but as long as the city can manage that risk, and HUD will review that, and when we issue a guarantee, what we're saying is that the risk associated with that loan or that note is acceptable. So That's another, like a double check on your underwriting. Then I think I want to go over real quick. This is important because this is a financing process, and I think the way that money flows. Sean mentioned that these Section 108 funds are not appropriated. That there's no appropriation for these funds. Only that there's an authority that allows HUD to provide the guarantee. Because these funds come straight from the Wall Street, came from the capital markets. And this is an example of how a transaction works. The borrower, which is the city, sign and execute the loan contract and issue the note. Send it to HUD. HUD will review and issue a guarantee and send the note and the guarantee together with the legal opinion and the advance request to the fiscal agent. The fiscal agent is the bank. This time is Bank of New York Mellon. That bank or fiscal agent works for HUD and for the lender. The lender are a money market fund that provides the actual cash. So the fiscal agent then sends the money directly to the borrower, to the city, and then the repayment, then the city sends back the repayment to the fiscal agent, and the fiscal agent works once again for the lender to get the funds. So this is the same example, but this time notice that there's a third-party developer. It could be a private developer, it could be a nonprofit that you're assisting, that that you lend the money and is repaying back. So you see how the money flows the other way. You just follow the same scheme of flow. So that's why, and this transaction is directly from the bank to the city's account through wire. Treasury and the government is not involved in this transaction at all. We only manage the process. And this is another source of that you need to understand. When the city first accesses the funds through for the Section 108, they do it through the interim financing facility. And in this instance, the interest rate that is paid is variable and is based on the 3-month Treasury bill option rate. They publish that every Monday, like last Monday they published, and it was 5.25%. And we add 35 basis points. And so that means that as this week, the Section 108 rate is 5.60%. On the interim facility, when you access the funds through this facility, you may prepay at any time. There's no penalty. Whatever is the interest accrue at that time, plus the principal that you want to prepay, that's what you have to pay. Then it can be converted to fixed rate, and that is going through a public offering. And basically, we have underwriters that buy. First of all, we bundle all the maturities into tranches and create trust certificates. And those trust certificates are sold. The underwriters acquire those trust certificates and they resell them into the market, and that's the process that we get the Section 108 funds through the private capital markets. I failed to mention that the terms are very flexible. Sean mentioned that, and that includes that the maximum amount or the maximum term of those loans or the notes is 20 years. It can be less, cannot be more. So it's a matter of like public improvements, for example, or public facilities. You can use your future CDBG, you can use it now and pay it back in the long term. That's another way to see, because if you have a project that every year you have to wait for the CDBG allocation, you know that every year, remember inflation? Every year, they're getting more and more expensive. So you do that project, you get the funding, you do the project, take care of it in 1 year, then you pay back in the long term. So we are good at standalone and combine or a gap filler. I know there's a lot of, you mentioned the ARPA funds. We know there's a lot of funds out there, free money. However, those free money, they have a lot of conditions, and sometimes eligibility issues are a factor. So what is the best thing after free money is low cost money, right? And that's what we are, the very low cost money source. So we are great as a gap filler, because sometimes developers they have a financial gap, and we are able to fill that financial gap. One of the ways, like you mentioned before, through subordination, that we can go into the project, subordinate to a senior lender, and that can make that project go forward with no problem. We also good with all the other federal financing entities, new market tax credit, historic tax credit, low-income housing tax credit. We are also good. And once again, that emphasize the flexibility of the Section 108. And I think I want just to show you the resources that we have available. We have the Section 108 page that is available to you. You see it on the screen. It is in Hot Exchange. It is part of the material that we're gonna send to you. You have different type of application assistance. I want to point out project profiles. Take a look at this. And this, we have passed way back, maybe like over 10 years of project profiles available to you. Right, Sean, you have worked on this?
I just submitted it. Yeah, 2007. We have write-ups for all the projects that have taken place utilizing Section 108 funding. So there might be an example in there that could inspire, or be copy and paste.
Sure. And the thing is, if you see something that you like and you want more information, we can hook you up with the recipient, with the borrower that had that experience, like a peer-to-peer type of assistance. And with that, once again, we provide our motto at this time is we provide assistance from vision to completion. That's part of our way of life. But we provide all the assistance necessary, because sometimes there's some project requirements and there's some program requirements, and they are like this. They don't fit. And what we do is try to restructure it so there's a good fit between the project requirements and the program requirements.
Thank you.
And with that, I send it back to you, Ms. Russell.
Thank you so very much for the information, for the education. Anyone have any questions for?
Sooner we can get that presentation, the happier I'll be.
All right, I will make sure everybody gets that presentation. You'll email it to me. I want to thank you so very much. We will be in contact regarding the next training that we would like to have. And that would kind of be every other month, but we're going to be asking the people here, and we're going to also see if the staff will also do some presentations with us as well. I will definitely be in touch with you this before the end of the week to talk about the next steps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a very wonderful rest of your day.
You as well.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Take care now.
Bye-bye. I hope that helped. Yeah, it helped with everyone. So part of the goal and my expectation is for the TAG group is there's a lot of experience with the group. And you all have a lot of information that you can provide us. Generally, we're going to be looking at project agreements. We're going to be looking at development agreements. We're going to be looking at all kinds of agreements. And generally, generally, we're going to be looking at you to say, if we get a contract, what should we expect to be in those contracts? What shouldn't be in those contracts? What are things we should be looking at? Not a specific contract. We're not talking about specific contracts at all. We're talking about a general contract. If we're getting a general contract on something, for example, Harriet comes from labor. What should we be looking for in contracts that would help us move residents who live in the city forward to either be a part of those projects, be hired within those projects, making sure there's equity in those projects, making sure there's a portion of a living wage in those projects, those type of things. People who have the expertise around, you can definitely give us a presentation on what type of loans and what type of federal government initiatives we can take part of, and we can apply for, because there's tons of money out there. So, I know the administration is talking to the federal government, so am I. So everybody around this table have some type of connection or some type of history with somebody. If it's not local, if it's the federal government, wherever it is, and I'm quite sure we're all trying our best to talk to those people to bring money where? Cleveland Heights. We all have the same goal, is to make Cleveland Heights the best Cleveland Heights we can make it. So as the mayor and as the administration talk to Chantel's office, Congresswoman's office, I'm talking to your office. As they talk to the governor's office, I'm talking to the governor's office. As we're talking to Sherrod Brown's office, I'm talking to Sherrod Brown's office. So it's always good to have people from different avenues to come in and talk about the same area. And so, and I know Harriet has labor connections where we can also bring those people to the table as well. Like Ellen, she can give us information regarding what are the real estate trends and locations. What should we be looking for? What should we be asking in those different things? As I said, as the new chair and as people who, we have some information, but there's a learning curve. And I believe everybody will come together and be on the same page if everybody has the same information, knows the same thing, and we are targeting the same goals. And that is to make the city and our community the best we can make it. So that's what I think would be a great fit for the TAG group to educate us. And also I'm going to be asking you all in your expertise to do presentations to us and say, hey, this is something I think we want to talk about, or we need to talk about, or we need to learn. I want you to also feel free to say, hey, at the next meeting, can we talk about this subject or this topic? And then I can find people to bring in to talk about those different subjects or topics. But we want to be, I want us as council, as the Planning and Development Committee, when Director Vance, staff, and office say, I have this agreement, and they bring it to our committee, that President Kuda, Vice President Cobb, and myself can look at that legislation and feel confident that we are actually looking at it. We know what should be in it. We know what shouldn't be in it on a general level, because we are not talking about getting into specific contracts with anybody. That's the city's job. We just want to be knowledgeable, so when we're voting on something, we know what we should be voting on and what is a red flag for us not to stay away from. Like, wait a minute, we don't want this here. So if they're aware, and I'm going to ask Director Vance as well, if, I would love for Brian to do a follow-up with the CBG funds, just to give us the city's perspective on how you all operate and use it as well. Anything that can be helpful. And I think doing that publicly helps the community understand how projects in our city operate, how they work, and we're being very transparent on the knowledge and the input. I mean, we have an architect who can tell us what we should be looking for when it comes to architectural design. They still have to go through the process, but ultimately, it has to come to our committee, and once it comes to our committee, it has to go to full council. But we want to be educated, and we want to be well-versed on what those things that we should be looking for and what those red flags are that we should not be looking for. And then I think the more we're educated on it, that bridges the gap between the city as well as us to say, hey, we know, because we've heard from what's going on, this should not be in here. Even with the developer, we want to know from the developer, what will stop you from developing here? What will attract you to come to develop here? So we want to have all of those tools in our toolbox, so when things are coming, and because we know, as I said, we know Severance is eventually Severance is gonna bounce, okay? And we're gonna get some development there. We know eventually that Coventry is going to bounce. We're gonna get some development there. We're hoping that all of that happens in the areas that need to happen, where it needs to happen, but we need to be prepared. And so I think in bringing all of us together to do that, we prepare ourselves for a better sit down when we look at legislation and zoning. That would be around zoning, that would be around construction, that would be around underwriting, that would be around the development and all of those things around planning and development, so we all have a better understanding on it. How do you all feel about that? You like it?
I think it's comprehensive. I have a couple of thoughts with you today. One
Okay,
is,
go ahead.
no problem,
Go
Greg. I think of TAG as a pool of expertise you can draw on.
Yes.
Okay? And the things that are going, and it is a pool because you've created this committee, will be at least at some level current, so that you don't have to begin at square one with somebody when you reach into that pool to bring them and ask them to share that expertise with the Planning and Development Committee on our city council. That raises the question, or raises several questions in my mind. One is, how do you think you're going to know for whom to reach?
Well, I think by all of us being at the table and we pick a topic to discuss and talk about, then that flushes out the information that we need. So we can say, we want to talk about just development agreements, period. And or project agreements, or what, give me something else.
Housing program.
Yeah, a housing program or something that we want to talk about and bring it to elevate it. Maybe something we know is coming up and we need to have some expertise on it generally. And we can always say, and you all as a TAG group can say, hey, I want to know something about this. Can we have someone come in and speak about it? So it would revolve around what's coming, the aspirations of how we want to gather the information, and who's at the table who want to be able to give that information.
You know, I know the goal of all of us is to say yes to economic development. This is what we want. We want more of it as often as possible. You know, I think last year on the TWG project, I think that was a cautionary tale that a lot can be learned from, and I assume a lot was learned from. I want to make sure that on economic development deals that are going forward, that we have a process in place, especially for city council, that ensures, or at least makes as likely as possible, a yes answer at the end. And we talked briefly about this on Monday in Committee of the Whole. But, you know, questions about when things happened and how they happened, I think at the end ensures success. And, what did I want to say? When do we engage the community? What kind of process is laid out in front of us? I'll tell you what I saw in this Noble Station.
Well, let's not go there.
Mobility Court. Well, I'm just talking about the
Okay.
process. I'm not talking about the project.
But I think that,
Can I tell you why
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead,
saying this?
go ahead,
I'm
go
saying
ahead.
this because I think this is where this group can be very, very valuable.
okay, I'm listening.
Okay. So if the process is sound, it seems like we get a better product. So I want to make sure that council is informed, that the community is informed, and that when something is about to, some development project is about to get started, I think that's a really great time to convene this group and make sure that we have a roadmap, just like we did for the second round of TWG. Every community meeting had a schedule of this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, then this is going to happen. And everybody knew what had already happened and what was yet to happen, what the timeline was, what the process was. If we could do that every time, and we have the people weighing in on the topics that you were just talking about, wages, all the things like that, then I think that could be a great role for this.
So, that is not the complete goal I have for the committee.
I'm not talking about, I'm talking about this is one role.
No, I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
but I think what you're saying, that's for council. That's not the purpose of what I want for this committee. Because I am not looking for this committee to get involved in particular development agreements.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I thought that's what you said.
No, I'm saying generally. So because what can happen in my mind, that's why I said general, because just for example, say Brian has a development agreement with the city, okay? And we're talking about it. That could be a conflict with someone else or something else that's going on, and I don't want to have a conflict with anyone. What the role I think, and this is me, I'm looking at as far as council, I want this group to be the education group for us, no matter what comes to us, that we're educated on what should be in an agreement, what should not be in an agreement, what are red flags for us. Now then, at the council level, however, whatever procedure the council agrees on that we move forward, we have already been educated by the experts to say, ooh, this is a red flag. Oh, no, but I'm quite sure once we get into everybody understanding what it is and different loans and understanding the process, the administration will understand, well, okay, because they'll be part of the group as well and be educating us on different things as well. But I think once we all get on the same page, I don't want the planning and the development team. First of all, I don't want to just have meetings on legislation because I think it's not productive enough. Because people need to understand and learn what is in those project agreements and what we are looking at. And the city needs the community needs to understand that as well, even with the process. Because even like if someone from the city gives a workshop or presentation on how the process works or whatever, but I think that's kind of separate from what this is, because this is community, and I don't think community people should, if Larry has a project or agreement, or we don't want that out there like that. I think we have to make those decisions, but here is more of an education, learning to say that when Eric brings things ahead of us, that will come just to this committee. That's why we're gonna meet every other, and the off meetings are just for legislation so that we can talk to them about the legislation that we need to vote on. But prior to that, they are feeding us the information we need, so we are very educated on what's gonna come before us. But I think what you're doing, I think that's just council. It would not, and you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I misunderstood what you were saying before about them weighing in on
Yeah. So,
development agreement.
yes, and not only development agreement, zoning, anything to do with, development, period, within the city. Because, I mean, Helen, I'm quite sure she's been around a long time and she has the expertise about what's the new real estate trends, what locations we should be in, what we should be doing. You know, it's a lot of people at this table who has a lot of knowledge and information, and if we share it and we learn from each other, I think we all move in the right direction together. Yes.
Would it be appropriate for everyone to introduce themselves?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, we did before okay, please. Okay, I will make sure I do that every meeting, and then we're gonna hold it up. Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Start with me?
Introduction, yes.
Hello, I'm Breon Pittman. I'm with Congresswoman Chantel Brown's office.
Very nice, and welcome to the committee, to the group, I should say, because it's not a committee. I don't want the residents to think I'm forming a committee. I'm not. There's no applications, no nothing. This is just a support group for the Planning Development Committee.
Harriet Applegate, and I'm a member of the Seventh Action Group, and also on the Charter Review Commission, but it's not totally relevant.
I'm Larry Nowak, and my expertise is from running companies for the last 40 years. I'm now retired, and I am with the Severance Action Group.
I'm Helen Hertz, and I've been involved with real estate almost 40 years, and I've lived here even longer, and I know a lot about the city. I hope I can help.
Karen Canelo, I'm the Assistant Planning Director.
Brian Arroyo, Assistant Director for Community Development.
Adam Winston from Metro Health.
Brian Anderson, Assistant Director for Economic Development.
Tony Cook, President Council.
And I'm Denise Russell, Vice Chair of Council and Chair of this committee. Yes.
Second thing, so the CDBG applications are released at the beginning of June, and
I didn't, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
The CDBG application process for funding for 2025 begin June 1st and then ends July 15th, thereabouts. So in terms of timing, if you wanted me to do a presentation, it may make more sense to do it during that period rather than after. So
Yes.
not disappointing any.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Great idea. So I will talk to Director Sam.
Yeah.
And you said June what?
June 1st to July 15th is usually 45 days.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you for that information. I just believe in everybody just learning and being educated on what they have to do. You know I have a little curve, but I know a lot of people. And so being on this committee will provide me to be able to help speak and talk about Cleveland Heights nationally as well as locally and state government. So this is one reason I wanted to be a part of this committee. And I think with everybody learning the information, get it, we'll be all right. Yes.
There was so much discussion about census tracts, low amount of income, and I don't think that we're all very clear on just exactly where these are, because when you're talking about Cedar Lane or Taylor, can these kinds of funds be used, or are they really in different neighborhoods? So I'd like to have that very clear to us, because some of these things that he was talking about today won't apply to areas that we're going to be looking at.
Okay, I will make sure that's on the agenda for the next meeting. Yes.
Just a follow-up question on that. They kept saying 51% has to be MI.
Yeah.
Well, then that means 49% doesn't have to be, right? I mean.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't know these things.
Yes. And see, perfect.
You guys do.
Perfect. See, that's why, this is one reason we're here.
Yeah.
Is anyone else want me to add something to the agenda for the next meeting? No?
I think his presentation would be great.
Okay.
I could do a short one, I could do a long one.
Okay, so you
Usually
want to
there are a lot of
add, you want to add the census tract to?
Yeah,
You do that?
As part of the presentation.
So it was made last year.
Okay.
Hey, Brian, give us a little bit, when you talk to us about this, give us a little history of how, where block grant money has gone in the past. I know more about it's being diminished. There used to be a big pot of money, and now it's much smaller. And I know you have to be a lot more discriminating in how you look at projects and whatever. If you could give us that background, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I can definitely give you
Okay.
years of background.
All right, well,
20 years is gonna be hard.
So we will follow up, and I guess you will be our presenter once I okay it. And definitely, we're definitely gonna ask you to present on behalf of Congresswoman about the different avenues, but you don't have to do it in June. We will get with you so you can be prepared on the topic and stuff, okay?
Most certainly. I actually just messaged our legislative director in DC. We just finished the community project funding for this year. And I will, hearing them, I thought maybe it'd be good if she could come in and talk
That'd be great.
about that. But we're still finishing up this year, so she's
Okay.
inundated with applications and stuff like that.
No, I actually, when I talked to Chantel's office, she said it's a lot of money, and we just gotta start applying. And so the more we can apply and the more we can put in this. But I thank you for being a part of this. Always my love to her as well. So with saying that, this meeting is now adjourned. And thank you so much. And we do have other people for the tag group, but because we switched it, because I was in conference, we had to change the tape. But I will get something.
Adam, do you have 2 minutes?
I do.
Okay, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.